Welcome to the live stream on comparing billing in Sage 300 versus Sage Intacct. So in this live stream, we're going to discuss the difference between how to process progress billings, time and material billings, and GMP, guaranteed max price billings. Also, I'm going to talk a little bit about the setup of the job and the contracts in order for us to show and compare the differences in the billings in both systems. So let's dive right in. Let's go over to Sage 300 and we're going to pull up the job setup screen. So in Sage 300, this is the job setup screen. Over here, we need to make sure that we have a customer and the use contracts billing method on over here. Okay, so this is the first setup that you need to do in order to build a schedule of values or a time and material billing or a GMP billing, all of your different types of billings where you will want to use the billing module. You need to call it as the use contracts method on the job setup area right here. Okay. So if you want to do a quick bill, then you pick the quick bill bullet there. Okay. So over here on the contract module, we're going to come up here and we're going to look at our specific line items. So this is a progress billing that we're going to cover here on this job. So in Sage 300, you're going to have your progress billing type here, and you're going to have your line items over here on the left. So to work in this contract module, you have to add these one by one. Okay, so there's an add contract item selection here, where if I wanted to add one after electrical, for example, I have to come in here and add my contract items. Okay, so let's say that I have a long schedule values that can get cumbersome in this section right here. Okay. Over in Job Central, you can set up and copy and paste in some of the line items for your schedule of values. So I need to get out of the job setup screen in order to get to Job Central because I only have one license. And we're going to show you that part of, and I have to also get out of job cost module. So sometimes in Sage 300, this is an issue. So let's open up Job Central. And we're playing with this job here. So I've got to close it in contract module in order for me to be able to do it in Job Central. So in Sage 300, you do have that issue. If you have the contract open and you're trying to adjust something somewhere else or use a different screen, it will do that in Sage 300. So just be cognizant of that. And we'll give this a second to pull up. Okay, let's try to navigate down here. And so what you can do is you can copy and paste in from Excel the three columns here: contract item, description, and your contract amount. Okay, and your status as well, obviously. So these four columns you can copy and paste into this wizard here. Okay, now what you can't do with this is if you want to set certain boxes like you would over on the contract item that is required, you cannot do that here. So this will allow you to copy and paste in some of your values. The issue with this is that you cannot set everything that you need to on the contract. Okay, so I'll show you here what I'm talking about. So we're going to open this contract back up. We'll see if it lets me, since I still have it open in Job Central. It doesn't, so give me a second. Come back over here, close Job Central. And we're going to open up that contract again. Okay, So what it doesn't allow you to do is set some of these boxes that are required, like your billing type, some of these other ones that are required for it to keep moving forward. Okay, so for you to order, in order for you to use it in the billing module appropriately. So while that is nice in Job Central, it doesn't really work fully as far as getting everything selected that you need. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out because it can be deceiving with that Job Central area. Okay. Okay, so let's navigate over to the Intacct system and show you how it works in Intacct on setting up the contract. Okay, so let's go over here to the Applications menu, and I'm going to navigate to Projects. I'm going to go over here to Project Contracts. Okay. Here's my project that I have set up. So I've got the project already in there. This is the project contract. Okay, so I use the same ID for both. Project contract 24030, project 24030. Got my customer and some header information up here. Okay, so fixed price contract or the progress billing. Okay, so that's all you really need to do on here in general to set up a contract to get the lines ready to be imported. Okay, so now we want to import our project lines into this Davenport Center project. Okay, so our AIA schedule values. So over here in Excel, I've got a file that's going to be used that's going to set all of those things that we cannot do necessarily, or that we cannot do in Job Central in Sage 300. Okay, so in Sage 300, we only had the line item number, the description, and the amount. Okay, so in Intacct, we can actually set things such as the max guaranteed price. We can set things such as the rate table. We want to assign that a line. So let's say I want to put the concrete line item here. I want to put a rate table for the laborers and in that specific line item. I can assign my rate tables here all in Excel. So I'll show that on this next import. This one is as a simple schedule of values, 4 line items. It's a lump sum fixed price, and we're going to, and no guaranteed max price or anything. Okay, so I'm going to show you how easy it is to import this in your estimating system or in Excel. However you're doing your estimating, you can simply copy and paste, your line items, or you just sequence them here, right? You do your description of that line item, and this can all be preset, right? So once you set it up once, some of these fields stay the same, like your account number, retainage, maybe even, and these especially, okay? The date you might change, and then over here, you're going to just put in your amounts, right? Simple, again, simple progress billing, lump sum, no rate tables or anything. It's a simple fixed price one, okay? So I'm going to minimize this. So this file is saved as a CSV. I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to import these project contract lines into Intacct, okay? So it was right there, actually. And we're going to do import. And you can see it successfully imported. Okay, so I'm going to show you what it does. So this is the project contract, kind of like header information. So if I want to see the lines that on the contract, I click lines here, and here's my schedule values lines. Okay, so if you want to click into a project contract just real quick to see what it all filled in, this is all of the information that it has filled in. I can also put, obviously, fill out more fields. There's more, all of these fields are available on the template, but this is what I wanted to bring in at the minimum. So really easy to get your schedule values in for progress billing. Okay. Okay, so now that this is set up, let's navigate over to generating an invoice on this contract. Okay, so I'm going to pick my contract down here. Let's just say that. Make these all the same. And we're going to hit preview. Okay. Here's your pay application number. So number 1, header information fills in for you. And scroll down. Here's where you're going to fill in your amount that you want to bill or your percent completed to date or stored materials. Okay. And then the boxes change as you put the amounts in. Okay. So similar to billing module in 300, when you look at the progress billing, so under contract-based invoices, so similar screen, you can fill in your work completed this period. And play with your percentages here as well, for example. Okay, so you finish this out in 300, it creates, you can print final and print the AIA, similar AIA type form to PDF. Okay, so over here, same concept in Intacct. Once you're done filling in your values, you create your invoice and you can create the similar AIA invoice in here. Once I go over to view invoices, I can see that invoice. Okay, so click printer email, pulls up very easily the AIA type form here. Okay, so over in the 300 module, to get to that form to be printed, you have to print final, put in an invoice number. So if you're using draw number sequencing, it's not as easy as just doing a 1. Here you might put the job number. So in Intacct, it's basically you just put the draw number, right? 01, 02, 03. Invoice date. Over here, you can print this to a file, PDF file, or you can print it out on paper. Okay, so if we do here a PDF, takes a minute to pop up. Okay, now I have to go find it. So unlike Intacct, it's on the screen and ready to print, right? So it's just a few more steps. I've got to go to that directory, find the PDF, and print it out from there. Okay. If you want to print to paper, a lot of people will print the Sage 300 forms to a directory and then go and print them off because they want to store that hard copy as an electronic copy. In Intacct, you have that capability anytime to come in here and reprint it. And you can reprint it easily right here. Okay, so just a difference there a bit on navigating with your invoices and being able to print easier over here. Okay, in Intacct. Okay, so now let's talk about the time and material billing. So in Sage 300, we're going to navigate over to the contract module. And we're going to pull up a time and material contract. Okay, So this would be a time and material contract that they don't really have a line item. It's just a total. So they're accumulating everything on one line item. So their bill might be a scope and an amount, or just a simple description on what they're billing for and $1 amount. Okay. So this one in Sage 300, you put billing type, time and materials, and you put your amounts in the actual billing module, not here. Because time and material, you don't necessarily know what your contract amount is, right? It's time and material plus a fee. Okay. So in Sage 300, Intacct has this as well. In 300, you have rate tables. So on my labor, material, subcontract, equipment overhead, I've got some rate tables assigned here. Okay. So in the billing module, I set these up. And if I have a cost type of material, it's going to look to this to see what to do with it. Does it pass it through at cost? Does it mark it up with a percentage, etc.? So over here in the billing module, the rate tables here are where you set that up. There's also something called a markup table and an add-on table. Okay. It's kind of hard to remember the difference between all of these. So I'm going to show you and compare this over to the Intacct rate tables here in a second. Okay. So this would be if you want to mark up labor at a flat dollar amount per hour. That's a rate table. Or maybe you have unit pricing on your material, for example. So markup tables are more for percentages. So I want to mark up my material at a specific cost or a specific percentage. If I have 10 grand come in the door, I mark it up at 10%, for example. Okay. Or if you want to put G&A overhead allocations on top of some of your costs. So I'm not going to go into great detail how to set this up in 300. That's the difference between the screens. Okay. The add-on tables is your fee markup on the overall after the rates and the markup tables are applied. So this would be your fee on the job. Okay. So in the contract module, you have, get rid of some of these screens here. You need to assign these rate tables and these markup tables on each line item that you're working with. So if you have a time and material line item out, you have to set up these rate tables in each one of them. Okay, you can't do that through Job Central that I was showing earlier. So you have to come here and you have to add your line items one by one. It will copy these on this one. So if I did another one here and called it something like extra work, it does do some copying, as you can see. It's made the tables come through, okay? But you do have to do this through the edit, add contract item utility here. There is no importing of this with all of the information that you need, okay? So over in Intacct, on your import file, so this is the same one I was using before. Instead of progress, I'm going to put TM here. And I'm going to put, if I wanted to, I could put a maximum billing amount here and put that flag and dollar amount for that. Now this one, I'm just going to do a simple time and material, no maximum. Okay. So T&M, as you can see in these really handy descriptions here, T&M has the ability to be a specified amount, no maximum. Progress billing has total revised price. So over here, you might put in your max price, might be the same as your schedule values amounts over to the right there. Okay, but you want to set these limits here in this column. Okay, so that's how you would do a maximum billing with the import file here. Okay, now obviously I would change this to a specified amount. Okay, so we're going to do one without the maximum billing on there and bring this in. Okay, so to save some time, I just imported that in, and over here you can see the time and material billing type. And I did put estimated prices on here because when I put this to an invoice and print this out, I might want to show these, okay, as an estimated amount. But you can also do it with no amounts. So if you just want to create a bill and show these 4 line items on the bill to the customer, then with the accumulated time and material with markup, then you do that here. Okay. Now, let's say that on my contract, I wanted to put a rate table on it. Okay. So let's say I have a specific one for the customer, or I have a standard billing rate. Okay. So you can set up as many rate tables as you want, and you can assign different rate tables to different types of transactions. So if I want to mark up my labor at a specific rate, but I want to mark up maybe I don't want to mark up any credit card transactions. I just want to pass them through. Or my POs or my AP, my related transactions, right? There's different tables that you can do with all of that. So I'm going to navigate over here to the rate tables. So let's come here. I'm going to go the rate tables area. And I'm going to show you how much easier this is to set up and understand than over in Sage, just as a comparison here. So Sage 300, you've got 3 different tables you've got to navigate around. This one, you can put markup percentages, you can put the rates all in one screen. Okay, so as you can see, there's a timesheet area, there's a purchasing area, AP, GL even, you can mark up. So if you want to put some direct cost entries in, what they're called in 300, you can mark up and make a journal entry and mark up that journal entry even, okay, in Intacct. Credit card, employee expenses, okay? So you can see the different fields here, but there are also different fields that you can add here for columns. So if I want to put a specific employee at a specific rate, there's an employee column here. So I'm going to show you the timesheet entry layout. There's an employee field here that I can add to, or just hit show details. I can add to this column, and I can say a specific employee gets marked up at a higher rate than all my other project managers, for example, for this specific contract. Okay, so there's a lot of flexibility in rate tables compared to in ease of use, ease of understanding the screen than 300. 300 still has capability to do some of this, but Intacct's made it really easy to lay out how you want to mark up and put rates on different things. Okay, so if you're wanting to mark up material, for example, or equipment on AP entries, you come in here and you put the percentage. If you don't want like maybe your Home Depot or your Lowe's credit card entries to be marked up, you're just going to pass them through. You can leave it off and not mark up anything on credit card entries. Okay, so lots of flexibility and lots of fields. So there's more fields available in the show details, or you can add it to the actual screen here using the layout function. Okay, so just a tidbit there. So let's jump back over to our contract and look at our fields here. Okay, so if I wanted to put a standard rate table on my contract line or all of my contract lines, then I would pick the standard default rate table. Okay. This here will apply to all of these down here. So if you pick this one here, it applies to everything down there. Okay. So let's look at the Excel file and see how easy that is to do on the Excel file. So even bringing it in, I can put my default rate table right here and call it standard, okay, or whatever it's called technically in there, okay? You can have different ones for different customers. Like I said, different projects even. You can go crazy with rate tables, okay? So if I had that on my Excel file, when I brought it in, it would put it right there, okay? So I'm gonna put all of these rate tables on all these lines. So give me a second here. And now after importing those in, the standard rate tables are on each line item. You can see it right here. Okay. So now I'm going to show you the billing process for a time and material billing setup on a project that has some costs in the system. So we're going to navigate here to projects, all, generate invoices. I'm going to fill in some dates up here. Pick contract number 11. It's got some labor and some costs in there. And we're going to hit preview. Some header information up here that pre-fills in. I'm going to put an application number in here. Scroll down and you're going to see some summary information up here for each contract line item. But I'm going to scroll down here and notice I've got sections here. I've got timesheet entries. I've got some past this labor. I've got some other sections here related to my accounts payable, purchasing. And if I have like a direct cost entry that I want to put into the system to mark up, for example, maybe you charge some insurance charge to your job and you want to mark it up, or you just want it to flow through to the job as a cost, you can put that in as a general ledger transaction. And you can put a rate table on that GL transaction as well to mark it up. So really cool that you can do that in Intacct. Can't really do that in 300. So up here, though, to show you a little bit, you've got your time, so your timesheets, or if you're using Sage Intacct Payroll, construction payroll, you have the labor come through with your hours and then the rate table that I've assigned to this specific job. And maybe I wanted to have a rate key off of the cost code. Maybe it's keyed off of regular labor. Maybe it's keyed off a specific person. So all of those different really cool things you can do with rate tables, it assigns the $75 labor rate to that line based on the different criteria I've given the rate table on the job, okay? Or on that line item for the project contract on the job, okay? So it's very granular, very flexible, but very easy to understand. Now, if I'm not sure what I assigned for that rate table, I can click this view rate source to see what that specific rate table might have been doing. So it is my field, $75 an hour. And I also have dates, effective dates I can play. So if I have a rate increase on every January, I can come and put those in on the same exact rate table. So I can use a standard rate table and I can add more lines down here when I have increases. So I don't have to flip the standard rate table around when I have a time period where my project might cross my fiscal year, where my rates go up or down. You just come in here and change it on the table and add more rows. So really, really nice flexibility with my rate tables. But let's say I don't want to bill this, or I don't like that it's 75 and I just want to quick change it. All you got to do is type a change in here. Okay. And 300, I'm going to show you the process to do this. It is not this easy. You have to regenerate WIP. You have to reassign the rate table. Also, if you have it across a fiscal year where your rates change, you have to go in and assign new rate tables. Okay, so a lot more complicated and a lot more difficult in 300, still doable, but it's a little more difficult. Okay, so really, really nice. I can change the hours. I can change the rate. I can put information on here. So really, really, really nice to be able to play with my time and material building if wanted. Okay, same down here. So if I don't want to mark up something, maybe I need to pass it through, you can come in here and adjust these numbers, okay, on the fly. So really, really cool. Now, say I'm good with it. I like it. I'm just going to hit create invoice, and my invoice is created, ready to be viewed, printed, sent automatically to the customer, all that good stuff. Okay. Or sent via email to the customer. So number 44. So I'm going to go to the projects. I'm going to go to view my invoices. Okay. So we're at number 44. And we're going to print preview my form here. That's going to go to the customer. Okay. Okay. Now, again, these forms can be customized. You can summarize labor, material, equipment, subcontract into one line item. You can detail it out. You can do all sorts of stuff with your forms, but just an example canned form that's in there. Okay. Let's close this. And now I'm going to show you in Sage 300 what it takes to do the time and material billing on a contract, and if you need to make a change, what that entails. Okay, so over here in Sage 300, we have a time and material contract up. So first thing in Sage 300, you do have a slight difference in here. You put all of your time and material to one line item, and you have your different rate tables for your different types of categories assigned here on the one line item. When you do generate the bill to the owner, you can do some categorization of labor, material, subcontract, etc., even though the line items aren't detailed out over here. Okay, so you can do some more granular billing than what actually shows over here on the left. Okay, so I just want to point that out. So first thing in Sage 300, you have a time and material billing type, you assign your rate tables. Okay, so if this contract goes over a fiscal year and you want to change or increase your rates, you have to come in here and change them. Okay, at that specific time when the change needs to happen. So these have to stay on until the old rates need billed. And then you have to remember to come in here and flip them to the new rate table. Okay. So kind of cumbersome to do that, on these time and material billings. So let's go over and look at the billing module. So now that this contract's set up, over here, in order to see my work in progress, so items that I need to bill for yet, I run a report in here, either work in progress or my WIP reconciliation report. Okay, so there's no real preview screen as easy as Sage Intacct. Okay, so if you are in the middle of generating your invoice right here, there isn't really a preview or the ability to change it. See, this is all you get. It's basically spit out my invoice or generate it. You have to come in here to generate WIP, change WIP, excuse me, to fix any entries, then you got to go back into that screen and see that it is changed on the invoice. So there's a lot of getting in and out of screens to change your billing rate on the fly. You can't do that in here. You've got to do some specific steps. So I'll show you that here. And now it says I have this in use. So I've got to go close it. I'm going to come in here and I've got to hit OK again. All right. So here's my entries that are in the system that I can bill for my WIP on this specific project. So you can change things in here, okay? You just can't do it while you're generating the bill. So just a note there. You can add some line items here if you need to add an extra amount to bill to your customer, okay? But you've got to get all these fields right, okay? So just want to point that out. So I'm going to get out of here. So now, I'm going to close this report because we don't really need that. I need to come back in here and generate my invoice again, okay? So if I generate my invoice, I don't like what it looks like. I've got to come in here and I've got to void it first, okay? So it's going to show a status of printed once I print it out and look at it, right? But in order to get rid of it, I need to come in here and change the status to voided. Okay. Then I need to come back in here. I would have to generate it again. And I'd have to come here to print, preview it, for example. Okay. Maybe I want to preview it quick first. So in Intacct, in order to, let's say I've generated this invoice, I did the print, real quick here, print to PDF, print a screen, and then print it out or email it right here on the fly. So here you can see it, don't like it. I want to get rid of it and start over. I just basically click the box here and delete. And then I go back to my start invoices process. Okay. So can hit preview here. Let's just see what we've got here in the queue to look at. And it's pulling up. Takes a minute. And here's a canned version. There's different versions in here, but you've got my labor and material in different, items laid out here. Okay, you can customize this obviously, but cancel this. Now, let's say that I'm not happy with how it did the markup. So I've got to then void it. Go and come in here to change, void it. I've got to go into the contract. If the rate table isn't the right rate table, I need to go to the contract and change the correct rate table. Or if the rate table isn't working like I wanted, then I need to come in here and change the rate tables and change the price, for example, on my unit pricing here, okay? Now, granted, obviously you have to do that in Intacct too if your rate tables aren't correct, okay? However, you can change it on the fly on your invoice if you need to get it out the door, okay? The thing with like I said, with the rate tables in Sage 300, if it crosses a fiscal year, you have to come in here and change this to the standard, maybe 2023 rates or 2024 rates. You got to come in here and change them on all your contracts you have in the system. Okay. So the other thing I would say when you're doing billing, if you do change the rate table, well, at that time, for that specific scenario, you do need to regenerate WIP so it recalcs it correctly. Again, it's not on the fly at all, like you can over in Intacct. Sometimes that doesn't work and you have to go generate WIP and regenerate and change. So this part can get a little hairy in Sage 300, okay? It works most of the time, but you have to know the very specific steps to go through when you do certain changes. So if you change a rate table, you have to do this. If you do some other type of change, you might have to generate WIP again. If you put costs through the system and it didn't push through, there's various checkboxes in the system you have to set up to make sure WIP comes through to billing module. Okay, so just want to point out, it does work. You just have various steps to go through if you need to manipulate or make changes. Now let's pause there. So we've gone through progress billing. We've gone through a time and material process in both systems. Now I want to show you a few minutes just how GMP works in both systems so you can see how it stops when you reach that specific limit and compare and contrast in both. Okay, so let's look at a GMP contract in Sage 300. Okay, so I'm going to navigate over here to Contracts module. And here is a contract set up with the cost plus to maximum. Okay, so they have one line item because they accumulate, again, in Sage 300, the time and material to one line, but you can break it out on the invoice into these categories, for example. Okay, and you can do different things, again, with Sage 300 that way. You can put your totals in here for your contract max amounts. Okay, so what the system does, if it says cost plus to maximum here, is if I bill over the revised contract total, so this had some changes made to it, change orders, then it's going to stop me at a point, but it really doesn't warn you until you get pretty far along the process, okay? And also, it doesn't really warn you. So I'm going to explain all this. It's kind of strange, but it does do some things with your contract plus cost plus to maximum here when your contract's set that way, okay? So first of all, in the billing module, you have to make sure that there's a setting that is a certain way. Okay, so you're going to need to make sure that this allow final printing of cost-based invoices with status maximum exceeded is not checked. So that's step one. Step two is let's make sure we have something in there that is going to get us over that contract amount. So I want to make sure my WIP is large enough to where that this is going to error out on us, okay? Okay, so first step, again, in Sage 300, when you're dealing with cost-based invoices, you have to generate WIP and or regenerate if you have to make changes. Also, or come into this change WIP screen to make some changes as well, okay? So I'm going to pick my contract here. I'm going to make sure I've got enough WIP in there. Oops, my contract is open in the contract module, okay? So it's kind of one of the downsides to working in modular-based system. You've got to close things at times to get to doing something in another area related to that. So now I can open it, okay? So now we're going to make sure we've got enough costs in here to get over that contract price. So I had put in this earlier, just put a $5 million amount in here, make sure we exceeded the amount on line item 1, okay? So line item 1 has the maximum cost plus to maximum on that specific line right there. So this is a different contract since I can't open the other one up. This cost plus to maximum had contract revision of some million. Okay, so that's what this is doing. It's tagging it to that line, looking at that total. Okay, so I'm going to finish this out. We're going to then generate the invoice. Okay, so I was playing in here. Now I've got to generate it before I even get to the point where I can print preview it or print final it. Okay, so during this whole time, you'll see I'm not really getting warned about much. So I'm getting far along, and I'm going to hit list here. And I know this is the USA customer, so I'm just going to type that in actually. And this is this contract. Okay. So I'm going to hit start. It's going to make a printout of what it just did. So I'm going to go look at that. Again, it doesn't really pop up. Got to find it and look it up. I've generated mine to automatically print to these print files. Okay. So it's not saying this has exceeded the contract price. It is saying that is what that line said. So that line was actually typed as contract maximums. It could say total or general, but you don't know even at this point. Okay. So you got to keep going. So now we're going to go over here and do a print preview. This is the normal steps you do if you're creating invoices, kind of in a one at a time here. So if you look at this one here that was generated, it takes a minute to pull up. You're going to see there's nothing on here that alerts you to the fact that it's over still. Okay. So now I'm going to go try and print this final and send to the customer because I still don't know that I'm missing my cost plus warning, which it doesn't really have. So I go try to here to print final, and you're going to see, I'm just going to hit select invoice here. So this gets all of my, just a quick tidbit. I didn't filter anything down. So I just want to see all invoices that I could potentially print. It's not even in here. Okay. These two USA ones were smaller ones from before. Okay. So the first clue you have is, well, okay, maybe it's not in there. Maybe because it did exceed, or maybe there's some other reason, which there could be many. At times it doesn't come through to the screen. So until you maybe go here and look and see, okay, maybe I want to check the status of this. Maybe it didn't get pushed all the way through. It's going to tell you here. That's where you're going to get clued in. You might not catch it till far enough along. You can make this a step in your process to check this status before you print final, but just, it doesn't give you much of a warning in 300. Okay. So I just wanted to point this out in Sage 300 that you really don't have a whole lot going on with those warnings. Now, you can void it, reinstate it, go back, make sure you don't exceed. But again, kind of hard to see certain amounts and what you have left to bill, all that good stuff in Sage 300. Okay. So let's say I went back and adjusted it. I'm going to have to go back in here to change WIP. I'm going to have to then play with that figure that I had here of the 5 million and make that whatever, or adjust some of the stuff, right? Then go back through the process to generate it, print preview, maybe print final, and then you print it all the way out. Like I've been previewing on the screen, the PDF that comes up, okay? And along the way, you might want to check your printouts to make sure, things are flowing correctly and all that. But it's hard to catch cost plus is the gist of that. Okay. So now let's go look at it in Intacct and see how it works over there. Okay. So over in Intacct, we're going to navigate here to the project contracts area, and we're going to look at the 11 contract. Okay. So the line that I have adjusted to a GMP on page 2 here is the utilities line. So each line can have its own GMP. So same as a regular time and material with no max billing. This one, you keep time and material here, but instead of total revised price, you're going to put specified amount, and you're going to put your max billing amount that you want on that line. Okay. So when I go to bill this, you're going to see what happens when a bill has come in and it's over the $1,725. Okay. All these other lines are time and material, no maximum billing. Okay. So as costs hit, it's going to accumulate and use this rate table to do the markup. And it's going to do all that on the billing screen. I'm going to show you here in a second. So another thing I want to point out is on every line item, I've clicked the summarize to a single entry checkbox. So what that does is all of these line items here are going to have costs associated with them based on the cost code I have mapped to this contract line number 1. So all of the cost codes listed here, if I have an AP bill or labor or something coded to this cost code, for example, it's all going to group up here to O1 pre-construction and general conditions. Okay, so I'm going to show you this whole process with the summarize entries on. Otherwise, if you don't have this checked, you can have a detailed billing that lists all of your costs out and the related markup. Okay, so I'll just show you the whole process here with a GMP on the last line and the summarization technique that Intacct has in place. So the purpose of that is if you have a time and material billing that is more of an AIA or progress style form that needs to come out of the system, this setup that Intacct has put in place with the summarization checkbox allows that. Sage 300 does not have that at all. Okay, so that is not even possible in Sage 300. So over here, I'm going to navigate now to my generate invoices area right here. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate this tab so we can look back at those contract lines if we want to. So we're going to go here and we're going to go to generate invoices in the projects area. And we're going to run this screen. Put in some through dates here. I'm going to pick contract 11. And we're going to preview this here. Going to fill in just a required field here, header information that pre-fills, and we're going to scroll down here. Okay. So number 1, the summarization of these line items, this checkbox here tells me I've turned that on. Okay. So instead of coming down here and billing these one by one and adjusting these, if I want to adjust in lump sum that I only want to bill $4,000 for my labor or this pre-construction and general conditions line, I can just type it here and it takes care of adjusting every single one of these line items. Okay, in time, for example, this timesheet area. So all of this timesheet area is in O3 concrete, it's in O1 pre-construction, but if I want to reduce it and not sit here and adjust each one of these line items, then you can do it up at the top there, up here, okay? So this is a time and material based AIA type form that I'm going to spit out. So it's giving me what the system says I should bill, but then I can adjust it down or up depending, okay? So that's number 1. But number 2, if you do want to come down here, let's get past the time, look at something a little easier. So in accounts payable, let's say the subcontract is marked up 20%, but let's say you really don't want to charge your customer quite that much. You could adjust this one line item here. Okay, leave the other one the way it is. Or you could adjust it in total up top for this 26 cost code that it hits, if you'd rather. Okay, so either or, you can adjust it here or up top in the summarization section. So it's both available. Notice it adjusted it for me up here. because that was 18,000. Okay. So now I know that I had set this up to have a maximum billing of $1,725. Also, it's telling me right here, my maximum billing is $1,725. So I have an $1,800 bill in the system, but I've already billed it out in total. Okay, so I'm going to show you what happens when I hit create invoice. So it's going to warn me that I'm over on that line. So if attempted to bill more than the maximum billing amount for the project contract line 33 utilities, reduce that amount. Okay, so watch, all I have to do, I don't have to go in like Sage 300 and go into change WIP, remove it, regenerate, and reprint, delete. You know, there's a bunch of steps you got to do to get this fixed. So here I just change it or delete it like I did. Going to hit create invoice again. And we're going to go look at invoice number 49. And put it on a AIA type format. Okay, so this is time and material based, but AIA with one of the lines having a GMP. Okay, so it kind of covered a bunch of scenarios there. So see my zero, I zeroed out that because it had an $1,800 bill current period. So zeroed it out. I changed that one bill to $17,000. And it put it all in the appropriate categories, obviously how I mapped my cost codes based on my lines over here in the contract setup, okay? So this time and material, AIA based with GMP works really, really well in Intacct. If you wanted to have this on a more simple form, like your T&M form and not the AIA based, then you just switch the form when you generate the bill on that first generate invoice screen where I put my dates in and such. Okay. So this is really handy if you have cost plus jobs that require them to be on AIA and you have some GMPs in there. Okay. So I'm going to cancel out of here. Okay. And just to summarize, in Intacct, you can do imports of your contract line items with all of the setup that is required, including GMP amounts, including your rate tables and everything that is required for it to flow correctly. In Sage 300, you really cannot do that. There is the Job Central that helps you copy and paste line items in, but you still have to go into the actual contract and adjust the billing tab on these line items to do your rate tables and markup tables and various things that you cannot do with Job Central. So it's a lot harder to get your schedule values in here. Still doable, quite a bit harder. Also, a big difference is what I just showed, the time and material, AIA, cost-based with GMP, very easy to implement, set up, and generate those invoices and change it on the fly. So Sage 300, you've got to go into change WIP and billing, undo, redo, regenerate, delete invoices. And here it's quite simple, as I've demonstrated, to make changes right on the invoice screen to your prices on your costs that come through. Okay. So any questions related to any of this or any other topic, reach out to us at help@bangertinc.com or join our free resource, our Bangert user group at bug.bangertinc.com and have your team join as well. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content, Sage 300, Sage Estimating, Sage Intacct, and other related content. If you have any questions, again, reach out to us through any of these channels. And thank you for joining this live stream, and we'll see you on the next one.